Great.
There we go.
Okay. And
As
want
we
to,
are waiting for people to log on, if anyone has questions that they want to put in the chat, please feel free to start typing. We have a list of questions that came to us. So we are probably going to kick off with that unless questions start really rolling in, and then we'll deal with the ones you guys have live tonight. But as we go, please, please, please add any questions or comments or use your microphone or whatever you want to do.
all the things, all the things.
Busy, do you wanna monitor the chat or do you want us
Yep,
both
I will
to?
monitor
Okay,
the chat.
okay.
Totally.
And I'll read this list we have here. Okay.
And then I will monitor to let people in and hopefully not miss anybody. One or both of my sisters is going to be joining today, which is very exciting.
Woohoo.
Um, all right,
We get going?
let's do it.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce Monica, our special lovely guest today. Monica Lynne is a local client-centered AASE-CT certified sex, intimacy, and relationship therapist. She has a ton of tools in her toolbox. She combines acceptance commitment therapy, internal family systems, polyvagal theory, emotionally focused therapy, family of origin, and feminist psychology in her therapy sessions and work with patients. And she works with a really diverse population of clients of all genders and sex orientation to help navigate intimacy and relationship issues. Hi, Caroline.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for joining. Okay, so, and just a reminder for anybody who's logged on, this is really informal and we want it to be really discussion centered. So please feel free to type any questions you have in the chat. And with that, Monica, are you still there? I can't see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here with us. I'm so excited to go over some of these questions with you and get to hear your perspective. And Busy and I have said over and over again since we started doing this with you that both of us combined have been doing this for 20 plus years and really feel like as we get to know more about what you do and what you can offer, we've really been missing the boat that we're talking about libido with patients all the time. Like 90% of our female patients want help with libido, but our tools are limited to hormones and internal medicine type stuff. So those tools can be helpful, but there's like this whole other world of intimacy and relationship stuff that needs to probably happen for everyone too. So
And
super.
I've already like been taking the things that you've said and been incorporating them in the last 12 weeks that I've known you, basically.
Really?
It's total, absolutely. So
Good.
game changer, total
Oh,
game
that's so
changer.
cool. Oh, I love it. That's cool. Well, I'm honored to be here. I absolutely love Alyssa and Busy, and this is just super fun to be able to be with a group of quality women talking about some things that we have in common. So thank you so much for having me.
We love it. We love having you.
Hmm.
So I will just start off with a question. Are we going to do any um definitions to start again?
No, I'm doing no everyone's burned out on my
Okay.
definitions. If people have questions about definitions, I will share them in the chat, but unless it's really necessary, no, I will not do that again.
Okay, great. So moving on, you're either premenopausal, perimenopausal, or menopausal. Welcome to anyone. One of the questions I got from someone, I think is a good place to start. And her question was, her biggest question is just, why am I so disinterested in sex? Even though I still can find sex pleasurable, I rarely have interest. Um, Monica, do you want to dive
Yeah.
into that? What would you say for a client who comes to you that says that?
Um, it I would say that it depends on so much other context with that. But what my head went to immediately was somebody who's been married a long time. But I want to state that it could also be somebody like I have people that are in their like are 21 years old that say the same thing. So it's not always the same answer, right? But a lot of times for people that are suffering from struggling with low libido, again, you have to remember that it's only a problem if it's a problem within a relationship dynamic, right? Because I have people that have a really low libido and don't think about sex ever and don't really care. But it's only a problem because their partner cares. But if they were single, they'd be like, well, I don't care. Like it's just
Right.
easier not to have that.
Right.
So I
Right.
like to kind of like remember that this is the context of it makes a lot of difference too. And so
Totally.
then for some people, when they're struggling, if they do wish their libido was higher, either for themselves or for their partner, then sometimes it's just a matter of stress, and it's like anxiety and stress that are getting in the way of any access to your own sexual arousal. So it's sort of, I try to like help people remember that if you were, I mean, this is a horrible example. Sometimes the weirdest, most morbid, dark examples come to my head, and I'm like, there's something wrong with me, I think. But like, if you were all of a sudden in the hospital and somebody you cared deeply about had been in an accident, and you're in the waiting room waiting to hear what the prognosis is of this friend, and somebody else says, hey, can you watch this hilarious comedy, this new one with Will Ferrell with me while we wait? You wouldn't have access to your sense of humor, to your lightness, to your ability to be free and carefree and like watching that, right? You'd be like, I can't. Like I can't look at that. I'm so worried about my friend over here. So I just try to remind people that when you are really stressed or really anxious or really you don't feel very safe or you don't have a lot of trust in your partner, you just can't access your libido. There's probably nothing wrong with your libido or your sexuality, but you have all these other things that are layered on top of it that make it really hard to get access to your sexuality.
I
Yeah.
think that's a really
And
complicated one too, and a lot of our patients deal with that because a lot of the people that we see are women who are middle-aged and they're often working and they're juggling kids. And I totally think it's a survival mechanism that when we get stressed, it's the first thing to go. And I also think I would add fatigue to that list. That's a really big one until the fatigue is troubleshooted. Like I just don't find that the libido comes back online as long as people are really wiped out or
Right.
just spread thin, right?
Yeah,
right.
totally.
And I
And
wanted to use that question too to have us revisit the idea of, what you've talked about of the on-ramping. So like
yes.
if you don't have new relationship
Mhm.
energy and you're not ready to go at the drop of a hat with this new person you're really excited about, if it is a long-term relationship, it usually is going to take planting seeds like you've talked about as far as like getting to the place where it's really more at the forefront of your mind and that it's an enticing idea.
And that I think leads me to the first population I was thinking of is when people have been together with their partner for a long time, they may feel this sense of like like you said, there's no NRE left, there's no new relationship energy left. You're not that excited about it. You've maybe gotten into a rut of sort of doing the same thing. A lot of people sexually do the same sort of protocol, so to speak. They tend to know at what point in the evening or the morning on a weekend or whatever it's going to happen, and they start to kiss a little, and then they start to move to touching each other, and then somebody gives somebody oral, and then they do penetration, and then they're done. And they're like so bored of that routine that
Then they're
that
done.
that's sort of like this point in life where you think, okay, how if we are, I always remind people that sex should be a byproduct of what your relationship is. Like intimacy and connection is the thing you're focusing on, and sex is hopefully the like welcomed byproduct that happens. But if you go into it going, let's have sex, that's really hard to get both people at the same time in the same headspace and the same fatigue, like you're saying, all the things to have
Mhm.
really good sex. But if you go into something saying, hey, let's connect. Let's talk to each other. Let's touch each other. Let's laugh together. Let's be playful. Let's do things that bring intimacy and see if any genuine arousal is accessed. That's a much better way to get to sex. But if you've also done that in the same way for a long time, then it can be really hard for people to not be bored by that. So I always tell people
Yeah.
like if you want to recreate the sexual dynamic with you and a partner, that is like a whole conversation that can be really fun. Like you can start to have conversations, whether you're on a hike together or out to dinner or hanging out in the living room, having a glass of wine, giving each other a foot rub, whatever. But like having a conversation about, we've been doing sex or intimacy the same sort of way for 5 years, 10 years, 2 decades, 3 decades. And let's talk about how it could be different. Let's talk about what you
Can I
love.
pause you really quickly? Can we back up and slow down a little bit? Because I think that is very easy to say. And when
Okay.
you say it, it's like, oh yeah, let's just toss it on the table. But realistically, a lot of people are anxious to talk about that because people can get offended very easily and take it really personally. So will you walk us through like how you help people navigate that?
Thank you for
You know that I would throw it right on the table because I'm blunt and inappropriate, but that's not how we want everybody to be asking.
Okay, good point. Okay, so if it were more of a tender topic, then I would always say, hands down, never do it during intimacy because it's always going to feel like a little
Good one.
defensive, a little prickly when you're doing that. So that's why I say, like, go for a walk, go on a hike, on a Sunday drive, whatever, and being able to say, hey, can we have, really, really good, healthy relationships, have weekly check-ins. So whether that check-in is about what you're meal planning that week, whether your check-in is about who's taking which kid to what sporting event, whether your check-in is about, how you feel, how full your tank is as far as your love tank with each other, like having some type of check-in is really, really a healthy way to connect and to check where your partner is. So if you're at one of those type of check-ins, and if you've never done that, talking to your partner about what would you feel about us having a weekly check-in, just to just see where each other's at and to coordinate
Mhm.
stuff. Then you could say, how do you feel about talking about our sex life? You start like really small with just one kernel and see what the other person says. Well, I don't know. What do you mean? What are we going to talk about? And they might all of a sudden feel like they're defensive, right? And being able to say, well, I just I want to know the things that you love, and I want to know the things that you could do without. So
Mm.
if we were, downsizing from, I don't know, a big house to a studio apartment, there's things that you're going to want to keep and there's things you're going to want to toss. If we were having to downsize our intimacy, what are the things that you would be like, no, I've got to take this. This is like my photo album. Like, I love long, slow kisses, or I love when we emotionally talk and connect in that way first. Maybe somebody else would be like, I don't really love when you suck on my nipples. Like, I just don't have a lot of feeling there. And I just kind of like, it's for you, maybe not me, but you think it's for me and it's not for me. And then it's not, like, let's toss
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
take that to the Goodwill. So
Yeah,
it's like being able to say, like, what are the things that you would want to keep? What are the things that you're okay tossing? And
I like
just
that.
gently being able to say, okay, so now we have all the ingredients that we really love. Is there anything you'd want to do different? Is there anything that you fantasize about that you've not felt like comfortable sharing with me? Like, do you feel comfortable now? Do you not? Do you
Mhm.
want to like write it down so that we can share it like by reading it with each other? Or, like just figuring out how can I take my own level of vulnerability and make it really safe and comfortable to my partner to know that I'm having this conversation because I care about you. I'm having this conversation because I love you and I want us to be the best version of us. But if you think about, when people say, um, I guess I'm a good example in this because I'm going through heartbreak, right? And I'm like at the 6 month mark. And I think sometimes I think of like, I want to be like my old self. Like, I don't feel like my old self. And then people will remind me, you're never going to be your old self again, right? Because you've grown and you've
Moving
learned a lot
forward.
of things. And so you're going to be this different version of yourself. So what you're missing is that joy or that happiness or that lightness. You can get that back, but it's not going to look like it looked
Mm.
before all of this, right? So I think of the same thing with a long-term relationship. Like people sometimes feel like, well, I want to get back to how we were when we first met. I want to get back to how we were when we before kids or, but you're never going to be that again, right? Like you're
Mhm.
different people now with
Yeah.
different bodies and different ages and different histories and lived experiences. So that conversation with your partner about how could we have a conversation about how to recreate and co-create the best version of us now and in the future. And what would that look like if we wanted to really get in sync to optimize it rather than trying to get back to something we can't or sitting in the status quo, which we're both kind of a little bit bored of. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
And
Yeah.
Allie, do you think that like So I just want to say this again. Some of you were here last time, so you heard me say this, but Monica, when I first met you, and I was very clear, like, yes, it's very normal when women go into menopause for their libido to decrease because that tends to be what I see, even under the best of circumstances. You brought up the example of, well, if you meet a postmenopausal woman that just got divorced and is dating, she's probably not going to say she has a low libido, right? So, like, I'm curious, Allie, what you think. Like, do you feel like there's a really natural physiologic drop off with perimenopause and menopause? Do
I
you have a feeling about
really,
that?
well, yes and no. I mean, I think that there are the physical barriers that we both navigate for people, whether
Hmm.
it's dryness or this is totally not a libido exactly topic, but a lot of women's bodies are changing and maybe they don't feel sexy or feel like
Totally.
themselves or feel like they want to be naked and having sex. But outside of that, I think, yeah, the more I really dig into this and pay attention, the more I see, and as I've been polling friends and talking to people, I realize that, yeah, it really seems like it's not probably hormonally based
Hmm.
because women
Yeah,
who are divorced and most of them, in my experience, are interested still in having sex, are saying, like one friend that I polled today was like, that is the only area I do not need therapy around. She was like, I just need to find more men that want to have sex with me. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And she's
mm,
53 and menopausal. So, no, I mean, it's opening my eyes to the fact that, and like we've said, I think we've been missing the boat doing, like, oh, we can offer you hormones and vaginal hormones and all kinds of hormones. But it's not, that is like just this small, small piece of how to really create wellness around this issue.
well, and
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting because the estrogen, when you go into menopause, your estrogen drops off a cliff, right? But testosterone doesn't. And in fact, a lot of women have a little bit more testosterone activity, like as evidenced by, more unwanted acne or unwanted facial hair. And so that is actually interesting that estrogen really isn't the driver for libido necessarily. It can certainly help with vaginal dryness and those types of things. But
Yeah.
um,
It's
And
so
and
Indeed.
Monica, that you have answered this question before, but a segue to what you've been talking about. Another question that came to me today was, what are some ways that you teach clients to help keep the spark alive and not get drugged down into the routine of daily life? Do you encourage people to schedule time for sex?
yeah. Um, so I highly advise against scheduling time for sex, and I always say schedule time for connection. So if you're scheduling time for sex, there's a certain level of pressure that's there then that, oh God, we're doing this Wednesday night from 8 to 9 and I'm not in the mood. Or he said something earlier that pissed me off, or she's, being really bitchy today and I don't feel close to her and I don't want to do this. So it's like anytime you're telling your body to do something that your emotional self is not in alignment with is like basically causing self-trauma for men or women. So you don't ever want to schedule time for sex. But if you schedule time for connection, I mean, connection for some people might be like, we're going to go after
Genius.
dinner for a walk, or we're going to go hit golf balls, or we're going to, and so for some people, it might be we're going to go read a book around relationships or sex on the couch. And while I read, you're going to massage my feet and then we're going to switch off. Some people, it might be like, I'm going to like lean on my partner's chest and just feel close to them. Some people, it might be naked cuddling or spooning, but none of it ever has to lead to sex. But it's just about how can we make time for connection with the ability of privacy, not being rushed with time, whatever things that come up that you need in case it does lead to sex. And
And
then,
I just had an aha moment as you're saying that, because like that is the definition of what happens in a new relationship,
yeah,
right?
That's a
That's
really
it.
good point.
That's it. You are
Yeah.
like excited about doing new things, connecting, making time for each other, just being really focused on each other. That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's almost a
Like
little
the
nervous,
anticipation is as good as the actual sex,
right?
right? The lead up is as good as the actual sex, right? So how do you you talked last time about the whole onboarding. Am I using that word?
On ramp,
Uploading? On ramp?
On board too.
Um,
motorboating,
would
on
you
board.
repeat because because I think that we've talked about like sometimes I'm gonna, for hetero relationships in general, like if one partner isn't as strong of a libido and one does, it's like you want that intimacy, but like sometimes you're not in the mood for sex and you don't want to always, like some people are afraid to have that intimacy because they know that their partner will take that as a sign that it's gonna go to sex and that's not what they want. And so I really like that concept of onboarding. Would you explain that again?
Yeah,
What does it upload?
it's, it's okay, Busy. You're so cute. No, I'm stealing it from it's
Okay.
Emily Nagoski wrote a book called Come As You Are. So
Mhm.
that's like a book you could book club with your partner. But Come As You Are is basically like female anatomy, sexual arousal, everything 101. Like a lot of like college classes will use that as their textbook. But she talks about brakes and accelerators. And so and you're going to have brakes and accelerators from your partner and from yourself, right? So a brake might be that your partner has bad breath. Okay, so you're wanting to be intimate with them, but then you're like, ugh. And so that becomes like, I lost my sexual arousal because your breath is so bad. An accelerator might be that your partner comes up behind you and puts their hands around you and kisses you on your neck, and you really love that feeling of being held securely and having that, right? Now, it could be very nuanced in that. It could be that a partner comes up behind you and is like, honk, honk, and you're like, oh, that's a break. Like that is not romantic or sexy at all. But a partner that comes up
I
and
love
knows,
that. I love Hong Kong. What are
see,
you talking about?
everybody's different. So some women are like, I hate being groped by my partner, like especially when I'm in the middle of trying to take something out of the oven and I'm bending over and they think that's the great time to come and grab my ass. And some women, like, I like to be touched 24/7, like you can touch me anytime. I don't even care if I know you or don't know you, just touch me and I'm happy. But some people are like, I don't want to be touched or I'm touched out or we all have different, zones where we feel that. So
Mhm.
it's your partner knowing, oh, I know my partner well enough to know that they don't like to be Hong Konged. They also are somewhat self-conscious about their stomach. So they don't like it when I come up and grab their stomach. But I know that if I go like right here on their rib cage, kind of in between, and I just grab them and pull them in and kiss them on their neck, I know that's a safety zone. Right. So it's knowing your partner well enough to know what is it that's going to accelerate so that you go on the on ramp to
Thank
on
you.
board, as Busy says, to
I'm gonna
desire.
just put it in the chat for myself.
On ramp.
So, um, so then if you think about what are brakes and accelerators for yourself, right? So you could have brakes for yourself that have nothing to do with your partner. So you and your partner in a great place, you're having time for connection, and so something you said earlier, Alyssa, reminds me of this, that your body's changed, you don't feel as comfortable, and all of a sudden you're naked, which is how you've always had sex, but now you're seeing a part of your body or from an angle that you're not feeling the same way about your body. And so it's actually a break for you. Like you decrease your own access to arousal because you don't like the way you're looking or feeling. So in that case, then it's like, okay, well, what can we do different now? Like some women feel that way after nursing kids and their boobs a lot, their breasts lose a lot of that elasticity. So it's like, well, how can you incorporate a really cute baby doll lingerie that allows you to have something sheer on that's cute, but you're like having a little bit of coverage over your stomach and a little support for your breasts? Does that make you feel like you're feeling sexy with your partner, but you don't have the break of being naked or being, I always said like being on top for me, well, I felt like I had cat teats. Like I would look down and be like, seriously, I feel like where's the litter of kittens? Because this is not attractive and I cannot stay aroused by
Uh,
myself. But if I have a cute bra on, I'm like, yeah, this looks great, or if you're on bottom, then you're fine. So it's figuring out how can you be in a space at the age you're at, with the partner you're at, with the trust level, the bodies, the everything, that you still turn yourself on or can be
Mhm.
turned on by yourself. So knowing what your breaks are. For some people, it's now I love to have lower lighting. Let's put dimmer switches in the bedroom, or let's use candlelight, or like having some music on because I know that the kids are somewhere out there and that freaks me out, so I want to have something that allows us to have some audible like stuff that's distracting. So I think there's a lot of like figuring out what are and accelerators for yourself could be that you feel sexier or more access to your on-ramp if you have been flirting with your partner all day through text. Or maybe it's that you feel a sense of more acceleration when you're able to tell your partner, I really need words of affirmation. I really need to emotionally connect with you. And so then you start that. You start the emotional connection. You start complimenting your partner. And then you have this dialogue or exchange that sort of allows that emotional part to be closer. And then you feel the on-ramp towards sexuality. So it's going to be different for everybody, but
Yeah,
everybody needs to figure out what's your brakes and accelerators for you and for your partner, and how do you share those in a vulnerable conversation so your partner knows, yeah, brush your
that's
fucking
good.
teeth.
Really good homework for everybody. I mean, I liked the concept that like, the traditional concept that in a heterosexual relationship, when you're dealing with hormonal changes, we've talked about this, how it's often the female partner that's like, how can I improve my libido? How can I improve my libido? And your question always is what is your partner, doing to help your libido, basically.
Right.
But I
Right.
also think this is a really good homework for all of us to have, kind of like along the same veins of knowing what you like sexually. You can't expect your partner to always read your mind,
Right.
right?
I
So
want to just add to that too, that I feel really strongly about this because I have so many women come to me either with their partner or alone and say, I want to work on my libido. And this is, they identify themselves as the problem.
yeah,
And when they're with me, or if it's the couple with me, which is even better because it's better hearing it from me than their partner, is I always look at them and say, this is not a her problem. This is not her problem, and it's not a her problem. This is a
mhm,
we problem. Sex happens between the two of you. You co-create that. If she's not feeling a libido or a turn on, then you have something to do with that most of the time.
right.
Sometimes it might be that there's hormonal stuff going on or, whatever. But even if it's stress and anxiety, you, partner, can tend to her stress and anxiety and help her relieve some of that so that she can access her sexuality. But this is always
Absolutely.
going to be a partner issue. It's not one person's problem. And so then when
That's a
men
game
show up
changer.
and say, yeah, and men will show up and say, well, I need more sex. And then that's the thing I probably said this last time. Nobody needs sex. Sex is not a drive. We always say sex drive. It's not a drive. Food, water, and sleep are the only drives we have. You can die of all three of those. No one in the history of the world has ever died of not having sex. So nobody needs sex. Sex is something fun that we do with partners or solo. Sometimes it's more fun partnered. Sometimes it's more fun solo. So if you're having an issue with it, it's something that you have to do, you have to co-create that together.
Yeah.
And often we'll look at the partner that's saying, it's not always men, but if the partner that's saying, well, I want more sex, or I feel like I wish my partner had higher libido. I wish they wanted sex more. I'm like, well, then show up sexier. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing to show up?
Yeah.
Because you're showing up saying, well, I'm ready to go. I just want to have sex. That's not how it works. You got to show up in
Mhm.
ways that are sexy so that the partner actually has space to create desire.
Yeah.
And we need space to create desire. Otherwise, if somebody's on you all the time, asking for sex, always in your face, working right next to you, sharing, your bed, all that, you don't have enough space to create desire. And so if you can give that partner space and then show up sexy, now desire is created and it's much easier to access arousal.
I do want to add a side note related to that. When I have people that come in and this is true for men and women, they're concerned about their libido. A lot of the times I will ask them, like, A, what is your libido like when you and your partner leave your home? You're away from your kids, you're not near your laundry. Like, that's a really good test. Is it a libido issue, or is it just like all the other things we've talked about? Are you busy? Are you tired? Are you stressed? And then the other question is, well, what is it like when you masturbate versus what is it like with your partner? Because if there isn't really a libido problem, or you're not having a hard time having an orgasm when you're by yourself, but then when you're with your partner, you're struggling with that, again, that's not a physiologic problem, right? There's something else going on. Not that there's not something else that needs to be addressed, but that's a good benchmark for people.
Yeah.
Great questions. I
Like
love
that.
two questions.
And I think so I got some really great juicy specific questions that I want to get to. But I do want to touch on this one first that's more physiologic that sent from another friend. Um so busy, maybe you want to do this one, but so she said things are generally working for me now. I got the cream, yay. How do I keep things this way? What should I expect? Is there anything preventative?
So you're talking about vaginal estrogen cream.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, my feeling, so this is just side note for people who have not gone through menopause. A lot of times when women go into menopause, the lack of estrogen can cause vaginal atrophy, which can cause dryness and discomfort. And so vaginal estrogen can really, really help with that. That is our number one treatment for it. You don't have to use it, but that is our preferred treatment. And it just helps the tissue like plump up so you have better lubrication. So really that's a maintenance issue, in my opinion. I mean, it sounds like she's kind of in that magic spot where things are feeling just right and her hormones are in the right place.
Right.
And she's probably working on all the other things to keep her libido going. Like that is really like about sustaining that. So
Right.
with that cream, fortunately and unfortunately, that is a sort of a lifetime maintenance as long as you want to maintain vaginal lubrication and health. Yeah.
Yeah,
What do you
exactly.
think, Allie?
Yeah, same thing. I always tell people it's a use it or lose it. You
Yeah.
use the cream and you're re-estrogenating your whole vulvar area and it's happy and those cells have the estrogen they need. They're so estrogen receptor rich. Once your levels go down, the tissue just integrally changes. And
Yeah.
so you can have even like a prolapse of the urethra where the internal part of the urethra actually kind of like prolapses out and leads to, so it's not just about pleasure, it's really about also the health of your genitourinary whole system.
Yeah.
I guess really quick, maybe we should just also add, because we've done this on other talks, but for anybody who's new here that hasn't heard the things we've been doing over the last few weeks, there are so many different delivery methods of estrogen vaginally. There's a ring,
Mhm.
there's cream, there's tablets. If you're doing things elsewhere, like a compounding pharmacy, they can make suppositories and all kinds of stuff. And if cost is a barrier, because I know for just another patient this week told me that her insurance company didn't cover it very well. It was like $300 for just a tube of estrogen cream.
Yeah.
You can all ask your doctors. The guy who was from Shark Tank, Mark Cuban, the drug company, he has Cost Plus, and he sells S-Trace vaginal cream for $13 a month for the amount you would need for a month, $13. So it also shouldn't be a financial barrier to get some sort of estrogen down there.
Yeah. I do
Yeah.
want to add one more thing about the estrogen too, which is estrogen vaginally doesn't usually improve libido for people. So I just don't like people to have that expectation that like, oh, I'm just going to use this estrogen and then all of a sudden my libido is going to be amazing. Actually, anecdotally and data wise, we really don't have evidence that that's true. But what it does remove is another barrier, right? Like another off
Another
ramp.
break.
Another pop break in your off ramp. Where just because, like, obviously, if it hurts when you're having intercourse or some kind of sexual activity, that is not a turn on for people. So
Yeah.
once that is taken care of, then you can kind of start to address the other things.
Yeah. And I guess that's a great segue into the next thing because it's still, this next question is about using something else vaginally. So I got another question that said, I love using Trader Joe's coconut oil instead of conventional lube. I've tried lots of lube and this works really well for me and my partner. But she wants to ask a doctor, is there anything she could be concerned about since she's using it internally and essentially it's meant for cooking? And also there's some pulp. Um,
I'm very uncomfortable with the pulp, just right off the bat. So I don't want pulp in there. I don't want
yeah,
pulp in there. Okay.
refined.
Just had to share my opinion on that.
No, I
Please,
think that's a
please
good
use
point.
refined.
Yeah, the refined would be good. And the other three things I brainstormed a little bit about this. I think the pros to using coconut oil, coconut, if it is unrefined, or unprocessed very
Yeah,
much, it has a little bit of antimicrobial activity. So it's actually like a really good choice for vaginal lube.
it's a great lube.
And it stays in place better than a lot of the water-based stuff. I mean, the silicone stuff I think has the longest action, but coconut oil can be really great. And then the biggest thing that came to mind is a lot more friendly for oral sex.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to
Yep.
taste silicone lube.
Yep. I
So,
always say if you won't eat it, don't put it on your vagina. So,
good
and
rule
you
of
already
thumb.
have coconut oil in your cabinet.
Yeah, exactly. And then she added to that question that she's had a yeast infection and just a couple UTIs over the last 3 years. Do we think that's related?
What do you think?
I think it's just having great sex. It's just a
Yeah.
byproduct of friction and maybe different microbiomes mixing. If it's a new partner, a lot of times your body kind of has this on-ramp for getting used to another person's
Hmm.
bacteria. So no, I don't think it
Yeah.
has anything to do with the coconut oil. I think that's a great choice.
I would add to that though, it is really, really common with perimenopause and postmenopause if you do have a little bit of vaginal dryness, which a lot of times you don't really realize. It's kind of a slow progression. That really does predispose you more towards urinary tract infections and yeast infections because the pH changes. You don't have as much healthy bacteria protecting the opening of the urethra and the vaginal lining. So if that is happening, that is somebody who I would definitely want to make sure is on vaginal estrogen. Like if it's recurrent, you want to make sure that that's not a piece of the puzzle for her.
Yeah. Yeah, I just read a study that said there was like mortality rates are actually lower in women that from UTIs that use estrogen, whether it prevents the UTI or not,
Hmm.
that morbidity and mortality is lower in women using the estrogen. So
Hmm.
that's kind of interesting, just keeping that tissue healthy, even if you do end up getting a UTI.
That is so
Um,
interesting.
Okay, and then maybe as a good segue to that question, here's another one to talk about. This person was prescribed the pill as her HRT, and she also read that possible effects from the pill can be low libido. So she wonders, could we talk a little bit about using the pill for HRT and what about, is there a different kind of pro libido HRT, hormone replacement therapy?
I'll say my 2 cents, and then I think you have better facts on this for me. I typically don't use the oral contraceptive pill for hormone replacement therapy once people are in menopause. It's safe for a couple of years, but generally speaking, especially oral hormones, they will compete for a carrier with testosterone, like we said before. And so it's very likely that you're lowering your testosterone levels when you take an oral contraceptive pill. So this is true at any phase of life. It's very common for women to go on an oral contraceptive pill and have their libido go down, which is ironic because they're on the pill so that they can have sex. And so absolutely transdermal hormone delivery has a much less negative effect on libido. And for hormone replacement therapy, and this is a whole other topic, and I'll put the link to the recorded Zooms on this. We really like transdermal estradiol that's bioidentical and a bioidentical progesterone. So the delivery is a little bit different, but the experience is, I think, much better for people.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ellie?
I wholly agree. Yeah, and then again, not to belabor this, but because we've done this on past talks, but the thinking is in perimenopause, when you are still actually menstruating and there may be a very small but still chance of pregnancy, the pill can be a good option because it serves as birth control, but it also gives you hormones. But the real thinking behind that is that with the birth control pill, the way it works is you're suppressing ovarian function entirely. So instead of having fritzy ovarian function where some days your hormones are high and sometimes they're low as you're working your way towards actual menopause, the birth control pill thinking is that you suppress that action and then you just have a steady stream of hormone delivery with the pill. So it theoretically that makes sense, but like Busy just said, synthetic hormones can increase sex hormone binding globulin, and well, all hormones can, but birth control pills definitely can lead to low libido. So I would just say it's patient preference. If you are finding that your libido is not good with the birth control pill, then I would look very much for a different. And if I could wave a magic wand for everybody, I would
Mhm.
say hormonal IUD, the levonorgestrel IUD for the progesterone piece would be like, I think like my top choice. If you're able
Yeah.
to do that, then that would give you the contraception and it controls the progesterone piece. And then you can just do the estrogen, which we've talked about in other times, but hormone replacement therapy is really, really safe, but really there's absolutely zero increased risk of breast cancer incidence with estrogen. And there's like this tiniest little bit maybe with progesterone, but we're thinking if maybe you deliver the progesterone with an IUD, that could be even less.
Great. What else is
Okay,
on our list?
what else is on our list? My phone closed. Hang on. Okay, so should we get to some of the other ones that I think could include?
Hmm.
Yeah, let's get back to including Monica, please.
Hmm.
Okay, how about what do you coach people regarding having orgasms through masturbation? Do you think that that helps make orgasm with a sex partner either easier or better?
Good question.
That's a great question. I mean, I think that if you are not super comfortable with your body or you don't know how you orgasm, I think it's important to masturbate in order to understand yourself better so that you can then communicate to your partner what you like and don't like. But I think the only times that it can, so I think it can mostly be better, but I think sometimes the ways that it can be worse are if somebody uses a toy that is highly stimulating and they get very, very used to coming from, just a certain vibration on a vibrator, that they may have a hard time with the dullness of a finger or a penis or a tongue. That might be a little bit more difficult. So that sometimes could be problematic. The other thing that can be problematic, and it happens more with men than women, is that if men are, or anyone, but if people are using pornography to stimulate themselves to masturbation, that it's sort of like what wires together fires together. So if you are
Yeah.
so used to seeing visual images and masturbating in a very specific way, in order to come, then that will probably be a challenge for a partner to replicate exactly. So I think that the best advice is how can you use masturbatory play in a variety, diversified way so that you are able to see what different things arouse you, stimulate you, can cause you to reach orgasm, and then how can you incorporate your partner in those things as well so that we're never getting like super pigeonholed into this particular way as the only way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like
It's
that.
such a sophisticated answer. That's very helpful. I'm like, yeah, practice makes perfect. Go for it. That's my answer. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even. Again, I appreciate you so much because none of those things really occurred to me. So thank you for sharing your expertise.
All very
I'm learning.
welcome.
I'm learning from you every day.
I love
So
it.
good. Um, how about what are the most influential factors in a woman's ability to reach and enjoy orgasm with a partner?
Say the first thing again. What are the most influential?
Factors, what are the
Uh,
important things that have to be in place for a woman to be able to reach and enjoy orgasm with a partner?
I always tell my clients that the three most important things are that you have an exorbitant amount of trust in your partner, that you feel safe, and that you're relaxed. So if any one of those three things isn't there, sometimes people cannot be relaxed and have sort of like that primal, like kind of great sex or orgasm from that. And you might not equate that with being relaxed. But the being safe with somebody and feeling like you can trust them is really, really important. Because otherwise,
Mm.
like women's central nervous systems are always going to be kind of scanning and assessing to see whether they're safe or not. So if you are the person receiving anything penetrative, it's intrusive. It's like it's can be something that's coming into your body. Not, I don't want to say violating, but it's intrusive in your
Mhm.
body. So you have to be able to, especially because a vagina is not like a open entry. We don't walk around with like little open vaginas all the time. They're always closed unless you're putting a tampon, a finger,
Mhm.
a vibrator, a penis, whatever in it.
Mhm.
That's when it opens. So in order for that to open, there has to be a certain sense of trust and security. Your central nervous system has scanned everything. It's
Yeah.
hearing things, seeing things, smelling things, everything. And it feels like, okay, I'm safe. I can relax enough to have something enter my body. So those are the three things I would say would be the most important. And so then that's where you have anxiety and stress that factor in that would disrupt that ability to relax or feel safe and trusting. So I think those five words would be my keywords. And then the other one would just be attraction. Like if you're not attracted to your partner in that moment because they said something rude or mean or that day, the day before, or if you're not attracted to your partner in that moment because they haven't showered in 3 days, or if you're not attracted to your partner in that moment because they're super drunk or like whatever it is, right? You could be attracted to your partner in general, but if you're not in that moment and you're trying to force attraction, then that can be a prohibitor. So I would say that being safe, trusting, relaxed, having your stress and anxiety managed, and feeling attraction towards your partner, those would be the top influencers.
I really like that because arousal and the ability for the tissues to become engorged actually is a parasympathetic activity. So
Hmm.
you have to be in a parasympathetic. I mean, for women, it's arousal can be a little bit more complicated, but it really is analogous to an erection. I mean, it's very similar tissues that are basically vasodilating, and that action does not happen unless you're in a parasympathetic state. So in parasympathetic is like you're not perceiving any kind of threat. So I really like the way you put that because physiologically that
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
And for those that don't like maybe understand that, it's like fight or flight is
Right.
sympathetic, right? And
Right.
parasympathetic is what happens afterwards when all of your blood pressure goes down and your heart rate goes down and your blood can return to your digestive system and all the things, right? Like, so you want to be in that post fight or flight or
Mhm.
pre-fight or flight situation.
That was a great answer.
Yeah. What
Great
about,
answer.
can you speak to, do you, I don't know if you're in your office, I think you are. Do you have props? Can you talk about what women you can use if they need clitoral stimulation in addition? Do you have
Um,
stuff with you?
I
Do you
have
mean to use with your partner, Allie?
Yeah, or
Like you're
I
talking about
guess,
hetero partner if you need
well,
more
I'm talking
support?
either hetero or same sex, but for a female body to orgasm with clitoral stimulation. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I
Visual
have a
aids.
few things in here, but like, I mean, and everybody's different, right? But the thing, okay, so here's like, I just got this at a sex party the other day, but this is like a small vibrator, right? Like if the smaller it is, the more you can get. Because sometimes when you have two bodies and you have a big vibrator, it's hard to like navigate that between you. So the
Mhm.
smaller vibrator you can get, they have one called the Bullet, right? And then there's like this one, I don't have it out of the package, but it's this part is like stretchy and you put it around the base of the penis, and then this is the thing on top that vibrates. Same, and this is like, I don't know, $8 at Lover's Package. And then there's, oh, is this one not in here? It's always interesting when mine aren't in here. I'm like, where did it disappear to? But this one's this one's by Onet. So this is more like $50, but it's a very high end, basically the same thing where this goes around the penis and this is a vibrating end and it's rechargeable. The thing that I always try to remind people of is that if you have something around the base of the penis that has something that vibrates on it so that the vibrator can be the thing that comes in contact with the external clitoris, remember that with penetration, you're going to get this stop, start, stop, start, stop, start kind of feeling. And most women that I know feel really frustrated by that. It's
Interesting.
like, it's like some people like that. There's usually the setting on a vibrator that can be pulsating like that. But some women are like, oh my God, stop, like just be there, keep the stimuli there and don't pull away. So then remember that if you're doing that with penetration, it would mean that you might have some in and out penetration, and then you might have to tell your partner to go in and stay there. So he's not moving, or if you're with a woman and she has a strap on, they're not moving, but then you're keeping that clitoral vibration stimulation closer and more
Yeah.
constant. So, I mean,
Yeah,
there's
because
so many products out
I
there.
think that's really common. And, I mean, it's cool that there's tools now designed for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of,
That are like focus on the clitoris. Can you
Yeah,
imagine?
exactly. Rather
Yeah,
than
it's
somebody having
amazing.
to try to do reach around and, you know,
Hmm.
not to get too personal, but anyway. Okay.
Somebody.
I'm just putting in the chat so I have a resource page on my website that has some good books, and there's some of my favorite ones. So I just stuck that in there as
You know
well.
what?
Oh,
I'm
thank
so far
you.
ahead of you. I already put that link in the chat right when you came on camera
Damn,
because
girl.
your resource page is amazing.
Okay.
It is. I love it. It's awesome.
Okay, so here's a great question. I'm looking, yeah, we're nearing the end. Busy, do we have any questions from live people that we need
Nope.
to focus
Nope. And
on?
just want to remind everybody, you can totally ask questions directly to either one of us, any three of us. If you don't want it to be a public question, you're welcome to ask anything, but there's nothing so far.
Okay. Okay, so then let's tackle this one. I love this question. I am curious. It says about anal orgasm stats. I've heard this type of orgasm is on par with a man's prostate orgasm as a very all-encompassing and deeper orgasm. I'm super curious if women are having penetration anal sex resulting in orgasms and how many women can do this. Would doctors say that this orgasm is either harder or easier to achieve than vaginal penetration? Um, I don't know that that's really even a doctor question. I'd love Monica for you to weigh in on that too.
Okay, I'm gonna how do I do this? I'm gonna see if, hold on, I'm adding something to the chat because I need to buy one of these. Oh God, that's a long link. But if you can click on that, I don't know that everybody knows what the whole clitoris actually looks like, but a lot of people think that the clitoris is just the little kind of pea-sized thing that comes right out of the vulva at the top of the vulva. But the rest of the clitoris is like these long kind of bands and these other like four kind of legs that come off of it. And those are all internal. And so if you think about where the vagina is, I so need models in my office.
Here, I can, you know what? You can share your screen.
Oh, oh,
I
I
can
can't.
share my screen
Yeah,
while
you
you're
can share.
doing that. Do you want me to do that really quickly just so
Put that,
people can
put that
see
one.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold
Because the
on, do I know how?
vagina, everybody used, Gaffenberg was this old white dude that coined the G spot, right? And that's not actually what it
Can you
is.
see my
Oh,
screen?
perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So that little top nubbin is that where her cursor is. That's what's sticking out. So that's the external clitoris. And 80% of women need that to be stimulated in order to have an orgasm. 20% can have it from vaginal penetration, which might be that the vagina's, yeah, right where her little cursor is there, that's the vaginal canal. So those bulbs on the side of it are what women are having access to nerve endings. So it's not a G spot, but it's that those nerve endings or those bulbs are loaded with nerve endings. And so they then
I'm
can't,
trying
yeah.
to just show this. I'm trying to like
Yeah.
make it a little bit more obvious for
Right?
where the
Yeah.
vaginal entry
Yes,
is.
perfect.
Yeah.
So, a little ways up, like a third of a, maybe, I don't know, not even an inch into the vaginal canal, you've got the access to to those bulbs and those nerve endings. So that's why some women can have internal clitoral orgasms. And that might also be, is this question the one about the anal one too? Is that what you just brought up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
She was asking, sorry, I lost it. Hang on.
That's okay. I can
Just
answer.
asking about anal orgasm intensity and
So if you think about where the vaginal canal, like if you think of a penis being in a vagina, if you were to insert a finger into the rectum, you would be able to feel the entire ridges and everything of the penis. That wall between the vaginal wall and the rectum is so thin. So
Hmm.
you can feel everything through there, which means that those bulbs and those legs are very close to the anus as well.
So
So if
you're
a
saying people, if they're having the orgasm specifically from anal, it's probably still because they're getting clitoral stimulation. It's not necessarily because there's any other, like, I mean, it might feel good for other reasons just because of nerve endings there, but there's no like actual clitoral activity
I mean, I would say I
rectally.
don't have a like I can't say that the statistics are for that, but I think most of it is because of that. But then you
Yeah,
also
I
have
think that's
women
true.
that have increased pleasure from just the external anus being
Hmm.
stimulated, and that
Hmm.
would not be clitoral. That's just
Right.
new things. It becomes an elastic
Totally.
zone, right? And
Totally.
you have women that can have an orgasm from thinking about something or somebody,
Hmm.
or from breast nipple stimulation. So that's
Hmm.
nothing to do with the clitoris. So
Right.
orgasms can be very heady and
Right.
very erogenous zone related. So
Hmm.
it's never going to be one answer for one
Right.
person.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Allie,
And thank
there is
God
an
for Google. There also, it turns out there's been at least two studies looking at this. And then, admittedly that it's really hard because all these kinds of things are just by patient reporting. But one study found 19% of cisgender women reported orgasms from anal intercourse alone, and while 50% required extra additional stimulation. And yet a second study reported that up to 94% of women said that they orgasmed with anal sex. So,
that study was definitely done by men, by the way. I
94%.
seriously doubt 94.
right? I know. It's
94%
a
of
little
women
bit.
don't orgasm from vaginal penetration. No, that is not true.
Yeah, I doubted that one too. You have a question in the chat though.
Yeah, and it's a really good one. Okay, Allie, is clitoral atrophy a thing if you are not regularly having sex, if you are postmenopausal? Like, do you think the clitoris needs to be exercised to maintain its health?
I don't know that I can say with 100% assurance on that, but I think it's more of the health of the gland, and the whole clitoral apparatus. As we saw, it's not just that one piece, it's like a whole apparatus. Um I think of the health of it more postmenopausally with the withdrawal of estrogen. And I
Yeah,
think that there is such a thing as atrophy, but it's not because so much of lack of use as
of
it is,
misuse. Yeah.
yeah, from estrogen and
I totally agree with that. I did actually just have to Google because I literally did not know that the clitoris did atrophy with menopause. So thank you for making me Google that. But I totally agree because you can have people that have not had sex for years who do have sex and are perfectly able to have sensation and orgasm. And I don't think it's because of not being used enough.
Well, I will say too, I mean, this is getting off topic, but of course, there's like not to get tunnel vision about estrogen. There can also be blood flow impaction if you
Yep.
have high blood pressure or, you can't have vasodilation to the clitoris. You're not going to be able to have as good of stimulation to it. So it could be a
Yeah.
cardiovascular disease problem,
But not a lack of use problem is,
not a
I
lack
think,
of
what
use
we're
problem, I don't
confirming.
think.
I
No,
hope that
no.
that answered your question, Leah.
But,
Um,
and thank you, Leah,
Added
for asking a question.
I added my Instagram in there just because I have reels in there that sometimes, like you said in the beginning, Busy, that it might be easy for blunt people to like bring stuff up, but sometimes it's easier if you have like, if one of my reels or anybody else's speaks to the thing that you're kind of struggling with in relationships, sometimes it's easier to be like, oh, hey, so I
mhm.
was in a Zoom call, a medical Zoom call, and I met this woman who's a sex therapist, and I was watching some of her reels, and these two are ones that, and some of them don't have anything to do with sex. It has to do with like transparency or communication or love languages or stuff. So I just wanted to
That's
put that in
awesome.
there.
That's great.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Very
Any
cool.
final questions from anybody? And Leah, did that completely answer your question? I hope so. Let us know if there was like a follow-up question that you wanted to add to that. If anyone has any final questions, you can unmute yourself and ask. Monica, thank you so much for being with us again. It's such a treat to talk
Yes.
with you. You are a
Thank you so
wealth of
much.
information.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
Seriously.
you.
always happy to answer more questions, or if anybody feels like they have some issue that they want to delve into deeper. I mean, you can come do one session with me. You don't have to be in therapy. You can just come do a session or two, and just explore things that are kind of been on your mind or you haven't known where to sort of process them. I'm here for you.
Love
Are
it.
you, in case I mean, because we're doing this recording YouTube too, like people who aren't local, Monica, do you do virtual therapy with any clients?
So I'm certified and licensed in the state of Washington to do therapy. So I have an office in Issaquah. I can do in person, which is my favorite. I do Zoom, or not Zoom, but yeah, a video telehealth conference with clients also. And then if you are across state lines, but you just want to, do a session with me around whatever topics, I can do coaching across state lines.
Mm.
So I would just categorize it as wellness coaching so that we can have conversations, talk, process, share ideas, tools, techniques, but it wouldn't be that you're actually in therapy, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Got it. Good
Okay.
distinction.
That's so great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks
All
for
right.
having
Well,
me.
Thank you,
thanks.
everybody.
Yeah, thank
I'm going to
you.
stop recording before I forget.